Welcome to the Pelican Brief with your host, David Tapman.
Welcome to the Pelican Brief. I am your host, David Tapman. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a special guest in studio. We have a candidate for Louisiana House of Representatives, District 71 in Livingston Parish, Jim Norhead. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you, and we're particularly excited about you offering yourself for public service. You know, it's a big deal, and we need good people doing that. If we want good government, we've got to do those things.
So I'm glad you said public service, because I consider myself a public servant, not a politician.
Good.
I work for the people.
We need lots of those. So why don't you take this opportunity to introduce yourself to our audience? Okay. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm Jim Norhead. I'm running for state representative for District 71. That's the Walker and Denham Springs area. It encompasses Denham Springs north to Lockhart Road. The north side of Lockhart becomes another district, and from Lockhart south side of that down all the way to the river is this district, and then over to the Walker area. Most of the Walker area, except for one little sliver that Mr. Sherman Mack's district goes through on that, and goes to the dividing line going to the east is Walker South, 447 South, going down that way, and it goes down all the way to where you turn to go to Port Vincent at the circle there. So that's roughly what the district encompasses on that. And I grew up in Baton Rouge, went to Broadmoor High School, went to LSU, graduated from LSU, moved to Denham, to the Denham and Livingston area and Walker and Watson area a little over 30 years ago. My wife and I built our home out there, and that was home and stuff and all. I'm a Christian, I'm a Republican, I'm conservative. My wife, I was living up in the Watson area, and I was complaining about something, and my wife said, well, instead of complaining about it, why don't you do something about it? So I ran for parish council and won. So then I had to do something about it and all, but that got my feet wet and learning how things work in Livingston Parish on the political side on that. My wife passed away in 2016, and so I ended up moving down to the southern part of the south of Denham Springs, and people kept after me to meet this other lady, and finally, I said, no, I'm not interested and all like that. And her husband passed away in 2019. Wow. And I finally gave in to my friends bugging me, and we hit it off, and now we're engaged.
Well,
and
congratulations.
Stuff, and, thank you. So the Lord blessed me twice with two good women.
One less eligible bachelor in the world.
That's true.
Huh?
That's right. Yeah. I did serve. I did something. I felt the need to serve again, after the parish council time frame there. And actually before that, I went to and joined the Army National Guard on that. We were activated for Desert Storm, but the regular Army did such a good job that we didn't have to leave the United States on that. We did help with some of the disaster areas and stuff and all like that. So that was a learning experience there as well on that. Then professionally, I started working back in the 1980s, fooling with computers and computer programming and all this kind of stuff. Went on and continued on up from that to system design and then project management and stuff. And then in 1999, I opened my own consulting business, working on large computer systems for state governments. I did a lot of work for Louisiana as well as other states, helping them modernize their Medicaid system or other systems and all like that, or helping them write proposals, requests for proposals to get bids and stuff, and helping them evaluate. Then on the flip side, I also worked for vendors, not at the same time, but I would work with vendors, help them respond to proposals, and then when they win the contract, I would help them install it. As a project manager, that fancy term for, you kind of, stay on track, you assign tasks, are you staying on schedule, you staying within budget, how are you doing timeline-wise, stuff like that, the usual task assignments and stuff and all like that. The last 6 years, I worked for a company called Public Consulting Group on that. They did the IVNV contract for the independent verification and validation for the new Medicaid upgrades for Louisiana on their new system and stuff. So I'm familiar with the department heads at the Division of Medicaid and Department of Children and Family Services. Worked with legislators before, both on the parish council. When I worked with our congressional delegations, I went to Washington to try to get money for funding and stuff, as well as the state legislature and all. I've spoken in committees and stuff and all before. I'm familiar with the processes that the state legislature goes through. So I think that's an advantage for me. That'll be a plus for me, I hope. I can hit the ground running pretty quickly. I heard that several of the gubernatorial candidates, they plan on calling a special session right after they're inaugurated. So hopefully I'll be able to represent the people from day one.
Good.
And be able to get in there and to do that.
So what made you want to be a state representative? I mean, thank you for your service already, right? Your military service to our country, and then for your service as a local elected official, which can be challenging. I'll use that word. Or I was going to say painful, but we'll go with challenging.
It was a learning experience there, and you know what really made the day. I mean, you put up with a lot of stuff, I know, but when you get an 85-year-old lady call you and say, you know, I've been trying for 2 years to get something done, and you got it done in 2 days.
Right.
That's what makes it. That's what makes it all worth it.
Right.
On that and stuff. But I wanted to help the people in my district. I mean, I grew up in Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana. I wanted to give back to my state and to my country as well. On that. I felt the need to serve, and that's why I joined the military portion of that. I ran for office, trying to make a difference and change some things on the parish council. I retired last year, so I can be a full-time representative. It's not like I'll be trying to balance working and doing this on the side. So I'll be available pretty much full-time for anything that the people need me to do.
That's awesome. So one of the things we like to do is a little game we play here, and we say, okay, last night you were elected to the Louisiana House of Representatives. And I know that actually procedurally it takes a while before you take office and everything, but let's just pretend, you know, tomorrow's your first day on the job. What are the things that you want to do as a state representative in District 71 and really across the state?
Well, one of my first priorities is the safety and education of our children. That's number one for me on that, followed by obviously flooding in Livingston Parish is a major issue, as well as road and infrastructure. The first thing I would like to do, though, is after talking with their coroner and stuff and all, I learned that, you know, we have a large drug problem with fentanyl and all, and it's only getting worse on it. But that is not part of a standard drug test. If you get pulled over for DUI or something, or if you're sick in the hospital and they run a drug test, it's not part of the panel that they check for on that. And I was kind of shocked at that. I mean, you check for marijuana, which it won't kill you, but fentanyl will on that. So that would be one of the things I would push right off the bat, to include that, as well as these fast drip tests that they can use, the paramedics can use, making those more available for the paramedics and emergency staff, so they can test and find out if someone's in the middle of an overdose or is suffering from the effects of that. That would be something I want to change on right away. I'll also, I'm a firm believer we've got to get back to the basics of education on our kids. We've got to stop all this woke stuff and this CRT stuff and prepare them for life, prepare them for jobs. We need new businesses to come in here, and they need good, qualified people in order for them to come and locate here on that. So the safety of our kids, doing stuff with this, for the drug stuff, that's one of the first things on that. Also the safety at the schools. We got to look at that and just prepare our kids for life in a much better way. I mean, our competitors and our enemies, they're preparing their kids to be lawyers and doctors and plumbers and welders, and we're worried about what pronoun we're going to use, you know, not to mention all this gender stuff. That's, you know, you're way too young to be fooling with that. And wait till they're 18 years old before they start doing anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, education is a great equalizer. We know that if you know, your chance of success in life. is exponentially better if you reach or attain certain educational levels. And
that's one of the things that's been driving the push of people coming into Livingston Parish. They have such a good public school system.
Yeah.
I went to public schools, my kids went to public schools, and my grandkids went to public schools. So I'm a believer in public school system.
Well, my good friend Rogers Pope, I remembered all the time that he was superintendent, and I really thought he was a great guy, and developed a relationship with him, and learned a lot about what his philosophies were, and he was a gem.
An interesting side note, his wife, Pat Pope, she taught school at the high school where I went to at Broadmoor at that time. So,
So you were a Buck, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know the Bucks. I went to high school in New Orleans, and we would play you all occasionally in the playoffs. Yeah. So a lot of our audience really likes to hear from the candidates. How are you going to win the race? What are you doing to? I think you have 2 opponents in the race.
Yeah, I have 2 other opponents. They're both good Christian people. They're both good fellows. I think I'm better qualified and have more the experience and the qualifications that sets me aside from it. I'm doing pretty much a grassroots campaign. I put up signs, I'm knocking on doors, handing out flyers. This morning at 6 a.m. I was at a restaurant meeting with folks and talking with them on that. I'm not going to flood the mailboxes with a lot of mail outs. I may send 1 or maybe 2, but that's it. I find that if I talk to you, I think that you'll see that I'm sincere and that you'll vote for me on that. And I like talking with the folks in the district because they ask me things I hadn't thought about, and I find out what's really important to them. And I was kind of surprised, being in Livingston Parish and the condition of our roads and the flooding problems, you would think that's the most important things, but it's education.
Yeah.
They're worried about their children and what's going to happen with their kids.
Yeah. It really is a big deal. And look, I tease all the time about public service because I did it myself, but really campaigning's fun. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of fatigue involved. But getting to talk to people and hearing, you learn so much, and you also learn that issues may change neighborhood to neighborhood, right? In terms of what you do, but we clearly in Louisiana, education is always at the top of the list. Yeah. And so,
there was an issue that came up. There was a pay raise for teachers put. And it failed, and it was a lot of it was the way it was presented and wasn't done very, very well. Right. They have since gone back and re-looking at that and stuff and all. I do support a teacher pay raise once they get the kinks and all ironed out of it. I wouldn't even. I'm not even. It wouldn't bother me if we did some kind of a supplemental pay raise like you do for firemen and police for teachers, as well as like this past legislative session they gave them a $1,000 stipend. Why not make that a permanent, an annual stipend? I mean, they pay for all their school supplies and stuff lots of times out of their pocket. Yeah. They work long hours, so why shouldn't you help them out a little bit more?
So my wife is a retired 33-year educator. Okay. We spent every year before school started, we would go to I'm not going to name a store, but you probably know which one. We would go there, get a basket, and we'd spend several hundred, sometimes $1,000 on school supplies because that's what she needed to get her job done.
And she don't get reimbursed for that. No.
And I would just tell you this, and this is just an opinion, but a stipend's not a raise. A stipend is one-time money, and it just doesn't work. And
I was hoping it'd be a yearly stipend. But just it's something anyway. It's a start.
The challenge with stipends is if they go away the next year, it's really a pay cut, and then so on. But I'm sure that if you have no other choice, you take a stipend. But it seems like recently we've seen that even across the state, where you're seeing more and more of people offering stipends, and people are sort of getting wise to that and saying, it doesn't really impact my retirement, doesn't really impact I don't know if I'm going to get it next year. It's a lot harder to decrease someone's salary than it is to take a stipend away. True. So, but there's no doubt. And I think my wife appreciated the stipends when she got them.
Part of the problem is with the state constitution the way it is, there's only two areas in the budget that you can cut.
No,
it's
I know.
Education and healthcare,
Yeah.
which to me are the two worst areas. You want to educate your people. You want to make new businesses come here. That's one area you shouldn't cut.
No.
And in healthcare, especially dealing with elderly and stuff and all like that, or health in general. Why do you want to cut that? So those are something we've got to look at changing.
No doubt about it. And there's plenty of change. We're last in a lot and first in very little. And so we've got to change that. And you and I talked about that a little bit before the show. So this is the opportunity that I give our guests to say anything else that we may not have covered that you would like to cover. Okay. Any other things that you want to talk about, either in your district, your campaign, about what you think about Louisiana or the future. This is kind of your moment.
Okay. Well, we've talked briefly about education. Roads are a major concern. We're infrastructure. We're behind. We're way behind on that. They haven't built. Livingston Parish hasn't built a new road in almost 100 years.
Wow. On
that, other than the interstate coming through or something. There are some roads that need to be repaired. There's some roads that need to be new roads that need to be brought in. I plan on working with the parish and government and the city governments and coming up with a new priority list and a new plans and doing stuff with on that. I don't want to study it to death like some things happen. Some things are no-brainers. I mean, you can sit at some intersections and you don't have to sit there for a year. You can sit there for a week and see there's a problem. So hopefully we can get those moving and find funds to start doing some of that. Flooding, major problem in Livingston. And everything centers around the Amite River. Amite River runs into Lake Maurepas. Most of Livingston Parish empties into Amite River or Tickfar River, but it ultimately ends up in Lake Maurepas. The last time that the Amite River was dredged was in the early 1950s by the Corps of Engineers. They dredged it to a uniform depth of 4 feet. A lot of those areas now are 6 inches deep. The mouth of the river, which they just now starting to try to clean up and dredge a little bit, you'll run your boat aground trying to go into Lake Maurepas. It's that shallow and all. And then if you get out of your boat to push yourself off the ground, you'll sink up to your waist in mud.
Right.
And all. So they're trying to do something about that and channel the water out. And that's one of the areas that we've got to do more on.
Right.
And then, of course, clearing up and getting rid of all the trees and limbs and stuff and all in our creeks and everything else as well on that. So, and that takes money on that. The diversion canal, the Comite Diversion Canal is a great first step. It'll help some, but it's not that's going to solve it all. So we've got to continue working on that. And I would hope that with the Amite River Basin Commission and the Watershed Initiative, those are communities I would like to be involved in and areas I would try to make a difference on that. That's two big areas here. The education, we talked about that on that. I am pro-Second Amendment. I'm against all the government mandates that shut us down for way too long. And I would even propose one of the things you were talking about is looking into, how do we prevent that from happening in the future? Well, one might be that, if the governor declares a state of emergency, it's only good for 120 days. And then if he wants to extend it, he's got to go before a committee of the legislature and justify why he wants to keep it. And they vote on it. And if they agree with him, then extend it for another 120 days. I don't think the intent was for him to be able to just shut the state down for a year or more on that. So hopefully we can do something to improve that on that, especially shutting down churches. I mean, come on, that's way over unconstitutional on that. And I do support veterans and seniors. I'll do what I can to try and make their lives a little bit better and stuff, and make it easier healthcare-wise and stuff. I've worked with Medicaid for roughly 20 years in one form or another. So I would like to serve on the Medicaid Oversight Committee. For those of you that don't know, that's the largest portion of the state budget. And there's roughly 1 million people on the rolls in Medicaid right now. It's 75% funded by the federal government and 25% funded by the state. You have to meet certain requirements to be certified by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS. I worked with them. I've helped with the certification processes before on that. Also, I've worked with FEMA in the past. After Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, I worked helping setting up, or worked for a company that helped set up 60,000 of those infamous FEMA trailers and stuff and around South Louisiana. And then I went to work for the Governor's Road Home program and help manage that. It was a multi-billion-dollar program to help everybody rebuild their homes and stuff. So I got kind of a varied background, but I think that will help prepare me and make me more successful in the legislature.
Well, I appreciate, again, you offering yourself for public service. Again, there's not a lot of us or, people to do it. And then when you find a good quality individual with a good background, then it's even better,
Thank you.
So why don't you tell our audience how they can get in touch with you?
Well, I do have a website. It's my name, all one word, Jim Norrid, 4, staterep.com. You can go there, or you can go to my Facebook site, which is Jim Norrid for State Rep, the 4 State Rep, or you can call me on my cell phone, 225-933-8855. That's my personal cell phone, 225-933-8855. Would love to hear from you.
Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you for coming in. I know you're busy. You were campaigning this morning, and I know you'll be campaigning more, and it's the weekend. So, that's when you get all your walking in and your knocking in.
Well, I've been doing a lot of walking. Just remember to vote for Jim Norrid for State Representative, District 71. I'm number 63 on the ballot.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. So that is our show for today. We are the Pelican Brief. You can find us on all of the podcasting platforms. If you are watching, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all of them. You can also, if you're listening, watch us on YouTube TV. We do a video version. On YouTube, we are at the Pelican Brief 225. You can also email us at thepelicanbrief225@gmail.com. So that's our show for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Pelican Brief.
Thank y'all.
The Pelican Brief is an off-script production.